Keep Nintendo weird, everybody. Your boy Seth here, bringing you another episode of the Weird Nintendo podcast about loving weird Nintendo games. If you've never listened and or watched an episode of this show before, here's what we do. I sit down with a guest, and we just gush. We just share the love of a weird or underrepresented Nintendo game, and that's literally it. It's all about the passion, it's all about the love, and it's all about embracing weird Nintendo, and weird Nintendo is best Nintendo. And we've got a great one this week. I'm sitting down with Mark and Patrick of Nintendo Cartridge Society to chat about Rusty's Real Deal Baseball, a game very near and dear to my heart, a 3DS classic, and one that we're going to be losing. If you guys have been following the show for a little while, you know that I've been focusing specifically on 3DS and Wii U exclusives. There's a couple more games that I want to make sure we get to, because the 3DS and Wii U eShops are closing here in just less than 2 months at this point. At the end of March, they'll be closing. So I definitely want to make sure I'm covering as many of these games as I can. But so Rusty's Real Deal Baseball is kind of the latest in the line of this. But I've got actually some stuff to talk to you guys about before we get into the episode proper. A couple of little pieces of housekeeping here. First of all, since the last time I saw you guys, we have merch. We've got merch now. There's Keep Nintendo Weird merch. I'm wearing it right now. If you're watching the video version here on youtube.com/allinpodcast, there's a Keep Nintendo Weird shirt. It's available in a ton of different colors, super high quality and cozy. We definitely wanted to make sure we didn't offer merch unless we were comfortable with the quality of it and everything. And I gotta say, I love this shirt. It's one of my favorite shirts. There's also a KNW sticker that you can get. I'm showing it off if you're watching the video version. Keep Nintendo Weird sticker, die cut, and it's like perfect to put on, you know, whatever. It's crazy to me that this weird little show has like merch, and that people are already sharing pictures of like the merch that they've got with Keep Nintendo Weird on it. It's just so cool to see, and there's all-in merch as well, which is great, but like this weird little idea, this little baby, this little passion project of mine, you can now wear it on a shirt. So if you love weird Nintendo and you want to just say loud and proud, Keep Nintendo Weird, you now have an avenue to do that. The link is bit.ly/allinmerch. You're going to find that link in the video and episode description, of course. So that's obviously huge. We also launched a kind of spin-off series for Keep Nintendo Weird called Keep Nintendo Weird Pocket Edition, which was this idea that I had essentially of, hey, between bigger episodes of Keep Nintendo Weird, there are some smaller kind of games or experiences that are like kind of weird Nintendo games or experiences that deserve to be covered on the show, but maybe don't warrant a big like hour-long episode. So I came up with this idea of K&W Pocket Edition. Just 15, 20-minute little kind of mini episodes of this show. Still the same idea, but with like smaller scale projects. And we launched the first episode of that, I think just like a week or two ago, about Pocket Card Jockey Ride On with my good friend CJ Andreessen. So there's been a lot kind of percolating in the Keep Nintendo Weird space as I've had time to sort of develop this and grow this thing a little bit. But you know, the full episodes of K&W aren't going anywhere. Pocket Edition is essentially just going to be like snacks between the meals, and that's exactly what it is. And we're bringing you a meal this week, though. Mark and Patrick from Nintendo Cartridge Society, when I knew that I wanted to do an episode of K&W on Rusty's Real Deal Baseball, there was no option B. I knew I had to get them. I knew I had to get both of them. And, you know, we were actually initially planning to do it before the end of the year, but the holidays kind of scheduling didn't really work out. And I knew that, like, come hell or high water, I needed both of them. And I'm so glad that we waited on it. I'm so glad that we let the moons kind of align, and I got to sit down with both of them, and we just get into, like, not only the nuts and bolts of what the game is and why it's so special, but, like, weirdly, you know, personal little things about it. Like, we ended up talking about just baseball as a sport, and, like, how Rusty's Real Deal Baseball, like, applies to American living, how it definitely, like, Rusty Slugger is kind of like the most low-key fleshed out Nintendo character maybe of all time, and even like nostalgia for childhood summers in Chicago. Like we kind of go all over the place, and I loved it. And it's an absolute pleasure. Nintendo Cartridge Society is a great podcast that I highly recommend you all check out. I'm going to let Mark and Patrick tell you a little bit more about it when we get into the episode. But of course, there are links in the video and episode description to all of their stuff as well. And hey, another thing I want to just shout out really quickly before we get into it is Patreon. Patreon.com/allinpodcast. You get this show and all Keep Nintendo Weird shows early if you're a patron. So patrons are actually getting this at least a couple of days early before the public does. So if you don't want to wait on new episodes for even just $1, you can head over there, join the 1-up tier for even $1, and get early access to all of this stuff. So, and there's a lot more perks over there. Our Triforce tier patrons, for example, get discounts on all of our merch. So, yeah, there's a lot going on. I want to point you guys to the Patreon, and I just thank you all so much for your continued love and support on this weird little show. But without any further ado, let's welcome Mark and Patrick to the show. Let's talk Rusty's Real Deal Baseball, and as always, let's keep Nintendo weird. All right, guys, Mark, Patrick from Nintendo Cartridge Society, I am so happy to have you guys on the show for this one. I could not think of anyone that I would rather be doing this episode with in particular, because for those who have never listened to NCS, I think Rusty's Real Deal Baseball comes up basically on every episode.
Okay, fair. That is fair. We have a couple hobby horses on the show, a couple games that we like go back to way more than we should. Like Star Tropics is on the list.
Yes.
Nintendo Badge Arcade is on the list. And Rusty's Real Deal Baseball has got to be like the top of the list for us.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
I have a deep love for the weirdness that is Rusty's Real Deal Baseball.
Yes. Well, you guys are on the right show tonight, that's for sure. So for anybody who has not listened to NCS before, doesn't know what it is, kind of lay down the groundwork. I guess either one of you, whoever wants to take it. What is Nintendo Cartridge Society? Tell us a little bit about yourselves.
Okay, so Nintendo Cartridge Society is a podcast that Mark and I do twice a week. The first episode is always like a measured news episode where we are very concerned with what's going on in the world of Nintendo right now. And then the second episode is more like a goof around fun time episode where we pick a topic within the world of Nintendo and explore it as deeply as we can. Sometimes this means that we are ranking the Koopa Kids. Sometimes this means that we are determining the best version of Hyrule. Sometimes it means that we are casting musicals with characters from Animal Crossing.
Yes.
So it's really like whatever. Wherever our interests and wherever like the Nintendo zeitgeist is at the moment, we try to occupy that and talk about it and have fun and be positive and make jokes and stuff. Mark, is that about right? Am I pitching the show right?
Yeah, I think you nailed it.
Nice. Perfect. I love that structure. I tried to convince my co-host on All In, Eric. I tried to be like, can we just do this? Can we just steal what these guys do? Because like that is brilliant to me. Like, because our show is like as long as Sin. It's ridiculous. And I'm like, we could take the news segment and literally make it its own podcast. Like, especially in this era of the Switch, there's like so much news all the time. Like, I think it's really brilliant that you guys literally split it up and make it two separate things. So
yeah, well, we weren't. This is digging into ancient history that I'm sure is interesting to exactly zero people. But we used to just lump it all together. We did one episode where we would do news for like 50 minutes, and then be like, "All right, now let's do whatever goofy thing that we want to talk about," and then like be 2 hours in and be like, what is this show?
Yeah.
But so yeah, now both of our episodes tend to run about an hour. If we've got some really juicy topic at hand, like we're ranking the main controllers for each console, like we recently did, that'll spill us into an hour and a half or whatever. Or like when we were ranking all of the original tracks in Mario Kart 8 Deluxe, that ran into two separate 2-hour episodes. But otherwise, we yeah, it's a lot. We like to keep it tight.
Yeah. I love that. I think it's super smart. So, NCS, there's gonna be links in the video and the episode description for y'all to check that out. But guys, we are gathered here tonight to talk Rusty's Real Deal Baseball, and I am so excited to get into this. I've wanted to do this episode for a long time. People who have been listening to this show know, especially as we're approaching these closures with the eShop and the 3DS eShop, this is one of the ones we're losing, tragically. Like one of the games that it's not like Pocket Card Jockey where now I can play it on my phone. Like this is only on 3DS. The games in the game are only on 3DS. And once those eShops go down, Rusty Slugger is never going to be able to feed his kids again. Like, it's so sad.
Yeah. I mean, so I had played a little bit of Rusty's Real Deal Baseball close to when it came out. And then the closing of the eShops really, or when they, in the lead up to them not accepting credit cards anymore, that was kind of the impetus for me to go back and be like, okay, I'm going to get all of the mini games because I hadn't done it before. But I just think I would really regret owning a 3DS with part of Rusty's Real Deal Baseball on it and just not the whole thing.
Because that's the insidious part about this, is that like you have to be playing the game and advancing in the story to have the opportunity to buy all the games within the game. So like just picking it up in the first place or just like throwing money at it in the first place isn't enough.
Right.
You've got to effectively finish the game before the eShop closes.
Oh man, that's such a great point. I didn't even think about that, because you're right. You have to progress through the game in order to even like have the opportunity to spend the money. So like you can't just kind of go in and like panic buy all of the games, before the closures.
You actually can. You can panic buy. You can pay full price for all the games.
True.
It is something that you can do, and there is like a special thing that triggers if you do that.
Oh, we're going to talk about that. We're going to talk about Pappy.
We're talking Poppy Van Poodle.
Oh,
okay,
yeah. Oh, yeah. We're going to talk about that. So, okay. Let's not get too ahead of ourselves, though. So, I guess who wants to just kind of set the stage for what Rusty's Real Deal Base? Because people who don't know what this game is, I'm sure that everybody listening already knows. But if you don't know and you're like, what the hell are they talking about? Games within games and feeding kids? Like, what's going on here?
Mark, you want to walk us through it?
Sure, yeah. So Rusty's Real Deal Baseball was a free-to-play or like free-to-start game that Nintendo introduced on the Nintendo 3DS. And it was at a really kind of like interesting time for Nintendo. Like Rusty's Real Deal Baseball is a real experiment. Nintendo generally up to that point, they didn't have mobile games. They weren't really big on microtransactions. There was downloadable content, but they didn't. Rusty's Real Deal Baseball is a little bit of Nintendo like dipping their toes into this free to start game that maybe will get you to buy things down the road, but they did it in like the most Nintendo way possible. So you are a patron of Rusty Slugger's shop, and Rusty Slugger is like the dog that you're interacting with through the whole game, and he's a washed up baseball star, and
Star might be generous. Star might be generous.
Right. He's a washed up baseball player who owns a little shop called Rusty Slugger's Sports Shack. And he has lots of sporting gear available, but he's investing into baseball gaming software, and you are kind of like exploring his wares. And he's telling you all about his troubled life. His wife left him. He has 10 little pups that he has to take care of that he's really struggling to take care of. And you are interacting with him to check out his games. And then you can buy more games, but if you don't want to pay the full price, you can haggle with him because he loves donuts. It's so like.
We gotta pause there on the haggling, because like it is both a mechanic within the game and the way that the game determines how much real money you're spending. This is not haggling with like any other merchant in any other game where you're spending a virtual currency and maybe you spend a little less because you had the right item. This is actually affecting how much the game costs you.
Yeah.
In real money.
So wild. I think that is like, as you said, Mark, the most Nintendo way to handle microtransactions, right? Like they effectively have tricked us into paying these microtransactions for these games that are actually just like really good simplistic little baseball games, little like arcadey baseball games that weirdly like utilize the 3DS really well. Like it's low key one of the best showcases of the hardware.
Yeah, well, and I would argue that the haggling mechanic and the buying things on a virtual, not virtual, but on like an eShop, that is also one of the features of the 3DS that this game effectively demonstrates, right?
True.
Like there's the touch screen stuff, there's the accelerometer, like tilt control kind of stuff. And then there's the 3D is also like super helpful to tell how far away a ball is when you're swinging at it. But also just the thing's ability to connect to an eShop, like it's the Rusty's Real Deal Baseball is like a how to use everything that the 3DS can do.
Yeah, that's such a good point. It really is like, because I think a lot of people would jump to like Mario 3D Land or something like that as like the kind of bog standard showcase of the 3DS. But low key, Rusty's Real Deal Baseball is like the ultimate 3DS game. And
yes.
I also think that there's genuine like story and character here that, bizarre as it is like way more effective than it has any right to be. When I tell people that Rusty's Real Deal Baseball actually has like a plot to it, and like you're actually like you're gonna come to like really care about this sad old, you know, dog and like his business and like making sure everything's good in his life. Like you really do come to care about this guy. It's
would you describe him as pitiful or pitiable? I feel like one of the two is true. I don't know which it is.
I don't know if it's mutually exclusive. I almost feel like he's both somehow.
He might be both.
Because he does have like that I mean, he 2 seconds into meeting him, he tells you his life story. Like just apropos of nothing. The second you like walk into, oh my God, my wife left me. I'm having to raise all these kids. I have to put food on the table, blah, blah, blah. But it also, when you're haggling with him for the prices of the games to buy, you are just inherently taking money out of his pocket. Right, and like the game
the
lets you know
encouragement
that.
of his children, right?
Yeah.
you are assigned, or you get to pick one of his kids to like sort of be your Sherpa through your experience with Rusty. And as you are negotiating, if you like give in too early, they will prompt you and say like, I bet Dad'll go lower on that. So like they need the money too, but they'll let you know like, my dad's a bigger sucker than that. Like you can take more advantage of him if you try.
So wild. I like, it's the kind of thing where like I can't help but imagine it happening in real life whenever I play it. Like if this happened in real life,
so sad.
Yeah, it would just be so sad. I would feel, and you do kind of feel bad when you're like kind of ripping this guy off a little bit, but you also want to get the best price for the games. You know, you don't want to pay full price.
You can
ideally
always say no. You can always say no.
You could.
Well, and I feel like the way they kind of like smooth that edge is that you are helping Rusty along as well. So like as you're doing the mini games, you're getting these different items that you know, you later give to Rusty. I think during the haggling parts to kind of like you know, like help him along. So like help him comb his hair, help him trim his nose hairs, you know, like things like that.
So good. I love like whenever he just has just this bush of nose hair. Like
it's just, I don't know, man. It's so much.
It just does something. I just love it. I love his design. I love just his characterization. Just this kind of like he's so sad, but at the same time, like the writing is like really funny. The stuff with the kids, the interaction between you, the kids, and him. The even like weird, barely thought of story setup where there's the Nintendo 4DS or whatever that the games are for that you then like get sucked into or something.
It's bizarre.
Whatever.
Yeah, it's not totally clear to me what's about. You do like jump into the 4DS, which then is like tethered to a TV or something, and you can see yourself like travel through the cord to the TV.
Yeah, not clear exactly what the physics of that are, but the game doesn't super care about that. It's not, you're not coming in here for, this isn't The Last of Us or something, and maybe has a little bit of the drama of The Last of Us, but
But one of the things, then, this is a thing that the game does have in common with The Last of Us, is that it's a brand new IP when it comes out, right?
True.
That especially for something that is like this story based and this like, so experimental in all these other ways. You normally, when Nintendo is taking a big swing, they'll like put Mario in there, or they'll put Link in there, or something, right? Like one of their recognizable characters. You could put an Animal Crossing character in here, no problem, and it'd just be fine, right? Like it could be Tom Nook's Real Deal Baseball, and you'd be like, yeah, okay, I buy it.
Totally.
Yeah, they're just like, no, this is a brand new dog character that no one knows, and like you're either gonna love him or you're not. And it's been 9 years since this game came out, and we've not seen Rusty Slugger again. Like this may be Rusty's last dance.
Yeah. Oh man, that should be
know.
the sequel. Name it Rusty's Last Dance. That's what that should be.
Because I don't think this game was like overly successful. Like I think you're right, Patrick, that this may be, I mean, never say never, but the last we hear of Rusty Slugger for a long time. It makes me a little sad that it wasn't very successful and that Nintendo is so secretive, because I would love to know not just the genesis of this game, but specifically like the genesis of the Western localization and the choices made, because it just seems so fascinating, like why this story, why Rusty Slugger, why is he a divorced dad with 10 like needy pups? It's so interesting because it feels like such like a curveball from Nintendo, but still has that same like because it's so weird, you're like, oh yeah, this is 100% a Nintendo game.
Well, and it's not like it's a weird framework for a weird thing, right? Like not only is it strange that you're like, here's this character who is selling you games for real money, but like the fact that it is a mini game collection of 10 different baseball themed video games that are all like you said, Seth, like really like arcadey, kind of almost Game and Watchy in in the way that you interact with them. Like Nintendo doesn't do that. Like that's not a kind of game that they put out, like a collection of 10 brand new mini games. Like WarioWare sort of fits that, Mario Party sort of fits that, but like all of that's not quite the same. So it's a bizarre framework for a bizarre gaplay experience.
Yeah,
I really want just like an oral history of Rusty's Real Deal Baseball. I just want to know.
Oh, that would be the best. I was actually looking. I wasn't sure if there was ever like an Iwata Asks about it or anything, but I don't think there ever was that I was able to find. But it's a weird setup, and I almost wonder if they felt encouraged to go in this direction because of it being on the 3DS, because it's not all that dissimilar to what you see with like the Street Pass games, like it's not quite like that, but it's not too left of center from there. And I wonder if they felt encouraged to chase down this style of framework when approached with the idea of like, how do we do microtransactions? What's the Nintendo way of doing microtransactions? Well, maybe it's this weird thing where we just make a bunch of like baseball mini games and kind of have you buy these things and get to haggle them or whatever, and have like a honest to goodness interesting gameplay implement that I have never seen before or since.
Yeah, I mean, when you're historically, when Nintendo's talking about how their games are developed, they talk about they figure out like the fun mechanic of the game, and then they work back, and then they figure out, okay, like, is there characters that fit for it, or what world should this live in? And I do wonder if they were like, well, how do we do mini games? How about how do we do these like microtransactions? It's like, well, what if there's a haggling mechanic? It's like, who would you haggle with? Well, you would haggle with this sad sack dog who, is just desperate to sell things from his store. So maybe they just work backward to the logical conclusion.
But it's like there are so many other like I said WarioWare, I said Mario Party. Like there are homes for like these mini game style things. Like you can kind of add Kirby to that too. That like Kirby games always have sub games. So like It does feel like there are maybe existing frameworks that it would plug into easily,
Totally.
but they're just like, nope. Something completely novel and new.
No, just go with the dog. Just go with this
What the
sad dog. And they actually have like, and if you guys have ever seen the Japanese version of the game, it's like wildly different. Like Rusty Slugger is like a different character and like kind of like racist a little bit. It's like kind of weird. It's like, and I can understand why they changed it for the American audience. But they put a lot of work into this game, like a strange amount of work for this strange concept. And we had mentioned earlier, Pappy Van Poodle, I think is his name, or Pappy Von Poodle or whatever.
Yeah, that's right.
They had to come up with a solution for if the player somehow inexplicably does not engage with the haggle mechanic. They had to come up with a solution for that.
Because as you are haggling with him, you have to put him in a good mood to haggle with him, which means you are one by one solving his various problems.
Mm-hmm.
And if you don't haggle with him, you're just giving him money. Money does not buy happiness in this game. It probably does in real life. So they introduced this character, Pappy Van Poodle, who is he like a former? What's his deal? Is he like a former ball player too, or?
He has some kind of history with them. He was like maybe an old mentor or something like that.
Yeah, I can't remember exactly what his deal is.
Just swoops in and solves all of Rusty's problems, like one at a time. So like literally, you don't have to play the story part of this game if you don't want to. You can just buy all the stuff, and then Pappy Van Poodle got your back,
which is so funny. Oh my god, I love thinking about the design, what the design meeting must have been like.
Right.
Like, well, hang on. What if somebody actually does, like buy these all at full price? Like, what are we going to do? And they're like, well, let's just create this whole other character that otherwise you will never see. In fact, I don't even think he was like discovered until like a YouTuber found him like years later or something like that.
Yeah. So the legend goes that there was not even a like Nintendo wiki entry for the character until that YouTuber found him. So yeah, it's a well kept secret, and like a bizarre one too, because like if you were to if you were to play the game and you were buying all the games and progressing the story as normal, and then like got a new 3DS and like reloaded the game, it would obviously remember that if you had a new 3DS, you wouldn't have your save data on there anymore.
Right.
But the game remembers that you bought all of the that you spent all the money already. Mm-hmm. So you would still have access to all the mini games without having to actually buy them all again. And then you would still have not haggled for any of them. So like that doesn't seem like that rare of a scenario, but I guess like most people were playing Rusty's Real Deal Baseball, and then when they were done with it, they never picked it up again.
So crazy. I can't believe it just went undiscovered for so long. That like this weird little implement that like they had to think about. I love that they had to think about that. Like they've just created something that is unique enough that needs a whole other character with a whole other story and like a way for him to come in and provide nose hair trimmers or like whatever it is that Rusty needs. Like, oh my god. I love that.
It's also it's a delight as you're playing through this game. Like the things that happen to Rusty and things that happen to his shop are like persistent. So once you give him the nose trimmers, then he never has no nose hair. he'll have less nose hair. But there's a part where the shop burns down and you like visit the burnt out husk of this store. And then eventually like he gets it all upgraded and his wife is back and like all this stuff. And like every time you visit, you can see either what's changed with Rusty or what's changed with the shop.
Oh, it's so good. And it's funny to think about too. The fact that they have kind of buried like, on the face of it, this is all weird and fun and funny or whatever, but like it is a fun game. Like the mini games are like really well made actually. And the way I sort of engaged with this when I first came into it, not really knowing too much what to expect, that was the draw for me. Was like actually I think there's 10 games, like 10 mini games, and they're all like high quality, fun little things with like a ton of challenges to do. Oh, they're really
Yeah,
good.
like each mini game has, I think it's generally like 50
A
like
lot.
levels, like, or within it additional challenges that kind of build on themselves, so it gets more and more difficult and kind of like throws new curveballs at you. But like you were saying, Seth, it is each in totality, like all 10 mini games, it's such a showcase for what the Nintendo 3DS can do, because there's ones that, it's using the gyro capabilities within the 3DS, so you're like moving it around. There's other ones where you're using the touch screen to make your own bat and then, try to hit a ball as far as you can based on that. That's my personal favorite. And it takes advantage of the 3D. Like it is just like overall kind of like a showcase for the capabilities of the 3DS.
Yeah, well, and I will also just interject to say that, like, yeah, there are 10 games, but and like we said, each game has 50 challenges within it, but that's sort of broken up into 5 different levels of 10
Yep.
different challenges, and each of those, like, style of challenge sometimes can feel like a different game within the game.
Mm-hmm.
And then every game also has 2 different like high score chase things that, like, they're called like what are they called, like marathon or something like that, where you're just like going for a high score in like some version of the game. So it's really it's like a countless number of tiny experiences within this package. It's not just 10 mini games.
Yeah. Oh, I really love I love not only the kind of vibe of it, the kind of arcadey
Mhm.
vibe, the challenge score chasey kind of vibe to it. It totally taps into that like WarioWare thing, right? Like
Absolutely.
especially classic WarioWare totally taps into that. But yeah, like just some of these games are just fun. My favorite one is probably the one where you're having to like bounce the baseball like with the actual bat, and you're
Yeah.
actually like flicking. Oh my, it's so much fun. Like it's so simplistic, but I love it. I don't know. What are some of your favorites that you guys can think of? Some of your favorite mini games?
So one of my favorites is I believe it's called Pop and Drop, where it drops like tires in front of you, and the tires are different colors and they
Yes.
have a different letter on them. And you have to push that button to swing the bat at to knock the tires out. And the colors are the same. The colors on the tires are the same colors as the buttons on the Super Famicom controller,
Mm-hmm.
or on the new 3DS not XL version, which I do have.
Oh
So
snap.
like
Yep.
the X button is that blue, the Y button is that green, and so on. And I was like, oh my god, I have a competitive advantage here because my buttons are the right colors. That
So
one's
good.
super fun.
Oh
Which
man.
one? What is the one where the I'm trying to remember the name of it, but it's like the anthropomorphic pitching machines
Oh, the
are,
Ultra Machine.
Yeah,
yes, the
Yes.
speak on those a second, Mark.
Yes.
well, yeah. So in the mini games, there are sometimes these like I mean, they're exactly what they are. They're like anthropomorphic pitching machines from Nintendo's past. I think you just said the name. I'm already blanking on what it is.
Ultra Machine.
Ultra Ultra Machine. But there's male presenting versions of these and female presenting versions of these, and the it is just another kind of like bizarre twist. I would say they're like the oh man, what is the Silent Hill enemy called from
Oh,
like
Pyramid Head.
Triangle
Yeah,
Pyramid Head?
totally.
It's like the Pyramid Head of Rusty's Real Deal Baseball.
Oh my gosh. That
Yeah, I
But
that
mean, you said they were anthropomorphic, and it really is just like it's a human being, but its head is an ultra machine.
Yeah. And it's I think even in the very first mini game that you play, when you first play the demo for the very first one, it starts off and it's like, oh, this is going to be like a normal. There's the pitching
right.
machine, but then he like rises from the ground.
Yeah,
That's so
here that
good.
is happening. You can't really
Yep,
see it.
there it
Yeah,
is.
there it
If
is.
you're
Yeah,
watching the video
yeah.
version, there it is.
I mean,
It's called
Rusty's Real Deal Baseball really has it all. It has like drama, it has mini games, it has humor, it has Cronenberg-esque body horror. It really covers all the bases.
the name of that game is Bat and Switch.
There you go.
Yep. That's
Bat
a
and switch.
I found that one really challenging. Is that the one where like at some points they like triangulate and there's like three of them
Yes.
and you are trying to hit like in rhythm. Yeah, that one gets and so they're like throwing, there's like three of them and they are all pitching at you from different directions, but you have to hit it in time. And so there are like it just gets really challenging to stay in rhythm.
Yeah. And there'll even be like levels to it where you can hit it like kind of in almost different positionally, like different places on the bat, like if you're
Yes.
hitting it in time correctly or not. And yeah, there's like quite a lot of depth to these little like, throwaway mini games. And I love the way that like they're presented like they're like Japanese like Famicom, cartridges and stuff
Mm.
for the Nintendo 4DS, like however that works. Oh my gosh. It's just really, it's like actually well made, actually high quality. It's not even just like we're here being like quirky and go play this quirky little 3DS game. Like it's legitimately
Yes.
really good.
Yes, I do sometimes think, because like Mark and I did a show a little over a year ago about Game and Watches, and we played a bunch of the Game and Watch galleries on
Mhm.
Game Boy and Game Boy Color and GBA. Um, and like I found myself during that time becoming like really evangelical about those kinds of gameplay experiences that are so simple, like one or two button inputs, right? And that it's just this like repetitive thing that becomes a pure gameplay experience.
Yeah.
And Rusty delivers that. And I feel so weird sometimes where I'm like, this most simple gameplay experience is like some of the most fun that I'll have gaming.
Totally.
And this is just another example of that, where it's like it's so easy, it's so simple, anyone could pick it up. But you could also go crazy spending hours trying to beat your next highest score, and just have a great time playing it.
Yeah, there's something pure about it. Like it reminds me of like some of the especially Nintendo experiences that I really love are things like WarioWare. Like the original WarioWare on GBA is like just one of my like top 10 all time probably. Like I just adore that game. And even like something like Rhythm Heaven, these are just collections of
Yes.
very simple games that are done almost all of them with just a button, or just
Yeah.
a simple hook, and like it's very very simple, but like there's something about that, there's something just so pure about that I think is like I don't know, I think that's really special. And you not only do you not see it very much from anywhere else other than Nintendo, but you don't see it even from Nintendo really that much anymore, which
Right.
kind of
They
makes me
kill
sad.
it. They kill it whenever they do
Mhm.
it, right? Like this is so good. It makes me think of NES Megamix or Remix, and NES Remix
Remix.
is the name of it.
Oh,
Um,
so good.
and it's the same sort of idea where it's like we're going to engage you in this very simple thing for like 12 seconds, and it'll be the thrill of your life while it's happening. And it's in NES Remix. It's the context is NES games. In Rusty's Real Deal Baseball, the context is baseball. It's the same concept.
Mhm.
It makes you appreciate, or makes me appreciate, how difficult it must be to create a game like this, where,
Yeah.
I just imagine, same with like the micro games in a WarioWare game, like these are the 10 that they landed on. And, I would say the majority of them are very good. There are a few that I don't particularly care for. Like the one that uses like the gyroscope, like gear games, I think it's called, where you do like a bunch of different things. Like
Oh yeah, sure.
uh
Where you're catching.
Yeah.
yeah, like I don't really love that one, but they have you just think of like how many ideas they must have come up with, and these are like the 10 that they whittled down.
Yeah.
Like they make it seem so simple, but it must take an enormous amount of work to find like these gameplay mechanics that are really simple but feel so satisfying.
And to tune them so specifically too, right?
Mhm.
Like there's the timing is so satisfying, and the sound in this game is incredible,
Oh,
right? Like
Really
yeah.
good.
the sound of hitting a ball with the bat or catching a ball, like those are the consistent like sound effects that they use between the games that just always rip and always feel satisfying. You can
Yeah.
tell when you've hit a ball the way you're supposed to by the way that it sounds.
Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, that's a really good point. Yeah, just all these little pieces. I even really like the way the game is presented visually, like how it kind of, it sort of looks like on the surface of it one of those like Wii Sports kind of experiences where
Yep.
you're playing as
a
your
me.
me. Yeah, totally. But like even just like there's something evocative of like a lot of them, if it's taking place during day or night, whatever the case may be when you're playing these games, it has this feeling of like a summer baseball game.
Absolutely.
And like it just, I don't know, there's just something like nostalgic about it, like weirdly. And you'll hear like cicadas and stuff like that with the sound, and you just feel like it's like this kind of like just sticky like summer day that you're playing, baseball in. I don't know, like I just really like it's if you'll pardon the pun, it's like just pitch perfect, like all around. I really like it. I'm curious how you
pun
guys
accepted.
Pun accepted. Okay, good. I'm curious how you guys first encountered the game. Like, were you there like day one on it? Like, do you remember how you encountered it?
So I've actually never really thought about it. My memory is that it was part of a Nintendo Direct or some
Yes.
sort of presentation is where I first heard about it. And then I remember getting it when became available. And again, just like messing around with it a little bit, but not really like I said, like I maybe got 3 or 4 of the mini games at that time. And then put it aside, but kind of like my esteem for it and my appreciation for it grew just the more you realized, oh, this was just like a total one-off that Nintendo tried, just like some weird experiment. And then again, when the eShop was going to close, or was going to stop accepting credit cards, that was kind of the impetus to be like, yeah, it's now or never. Like I need to get back and download all of these games.
Mark, do you think you and I talked about Rusty's Real Deal Baseball when it was coming out? Because we knew each other in 2014.
I don't think we did. I don't have any memory of talking about Rusty's Real Deal Baseball with you.
Yeah, neither do I. But like we talked about Nintendo stuff, between the two of us a lot. But I feel like this is also a little bit during the era when like we weren't as totally plugged into Nintendo, like
Yes.
individually, where we had both sort of like drifted away. The beginning of the of the Wii U era. I know Mark never got a Wii U. I got mine late. And like, wasn't really until like kind of later in that generation that we were like very plugged in again. So yeah, it's possible that that we both like quietly saw this thing and we're like, oh, cool, and then not tell each other about it.
Yeah, that is possible.
That makes
Seth,
sense.
do you remember how you came to this game?
Yeah, I because you're right, and I was thinking about this recently, just like how hard it was to be a Nintendo fan in the early like days of the Wii U, and like particularly in the late days of the Wii U, like just very like we were just fighting for scraps.
In the late days of the Wii, like yeah,
it's always like that, man. Like they just starve us until we're just like so hungry for anything else. And I do remember seeing it and thinking it was an interesting idea, and I think maybe I had read from Game Informer or like something like about the haggling thing. And I remember my experience is similar to Mark's, where I remember downloading it and kind of messing with it, like, oh, this is cute, but never like getting truly sucked into it. But it kind of marinated like in my brain. Like
Yes.
I kept it on my 3DS, and like something about it just kind of wormed its way. And there was a time I reached this place with my 3DS career, I don't know, just playing the 3DS, where I was getting really, really into like playing the Street Pass games and stuff. I was going to a lot of conventions and stuff at that time, so like the Street Pass was popping off. Like I was just,
oh man, I miss Street Pass.
Oh my god, it was so good. Like that green light was just like so comforting. Oh my god.
Oh yeah, wonderful.
So
yeah, I forget where it is, and then like it lights up, and I'm like, oh,
hang on, what? Yeah, it was awesome. And so I was spending a lot of time doing stuff like that on my 3DS and not playing a lot of like real games on it. And so eventually I think I just like stumbled back onto the Icon. Like Rusty just sort of, if I can evangelize him truly, he found me in my lowest point. And
Save two,
Oh, with his, there
Yeah.
was something about his like 3-hair comb over that really
Yeah.
just draws people in.
I should just give it
Father,
another shot.
Son, and the holy waft.
Yes.
And when you only saw one set of footprints in the baseball field, that was
That's
Rusty
where he
carrying
carried
you.
me. That's where he carried me. Yeah, absolutely. What about you, Patrick? Were you day one on it? What was the deal?
Oh, I don't remember.
Really?
Honestly, yeah, I know that it was on my 3DS for a long time, and I think like you, I dipped in for a couple games, and like the thing with this game, and we did it too. We started with talking about like the haggling and the framework for the game. Which is interesting, and there's like no way to avoid it in the marketing and talking about it and reflecting on it. But the real like joy from the game and the real like the way that you will spend most of your time with it is in playing the mini games, which are good. And it took me like getting over that hurdle of like this isn't just I'm not just playing this to advance the story. I'm playing it because the games themselves are fun. And I was like, oh, wait a minute. This is a ton of fun. It's like a almost unending well of fun.
Yeah. I think about it too, because if they were to do, if Rusty's Last Dance did happen on the Switch, they couldn't really get away with it today. Like the whole microtransactions are such a dirty word today that like, I don't know that people like us would really like it and we would still play it. But like, I don't know that the average gamer would vibe with that,
I wonder if where it would work is on mobile. Where like when they introduced Super Mario Run, one of the huge like knocks against it was that you had to pay the $10 for it, that you couldn't kind of. And so I wonder if the kind of like free to start, because Nintendo still occasionally, or at least in collaboration with HAL, there have been Pokemon games and Kirby games that are free to start that show up on Switch every once in a while. But I feel like, especially with I feel like a game like this could do really well on mobile, because it seems really open to that sort of like pricing scheme.
Well, I also wonder like how much is Look, it's so novel. It is so novel that you're haggling and paying real money as you go to unlock these games. But how crucial is that to your experience of enjoying Rusty's Real Deal Baseball?
Right.
If you paid $20 for this game, and then you had to use like an in-game currency that you never spent real money on to like unlock these games and barter with the dog and give him nose hair trimmers, like does it affect your experience of the game or not? Like, I don't know.
I think it does. I think the fact that there's like one of the things that makes the game so interesting, especially as an experiment, is the fact that like, yeah, you are paying variable prices. Like you and I could pay different amounts to experience all of Rusty's Real Deal Baseball. Like that's cool. That's kind of like novel. Like to me, that's part of what makes it unique, is the variability where people can have different experiences. And if you don't want to do the haggle mechanic, you can just buy all the mini games. Or if you want to do it sometimes, I just think that's so unique to this experience.
Yeah, or if there are games you don't want to buy in it that you don't have to.
Right. Yeah, that's a good point. And I wonder too if like the haggling mechanic could be used to facilitate a different like style. Like if it doesn't necessarily have to be like real money for it to be haggling, right? Like if they were to put this on Switch or Apple Arcade or something, they could just make earnable in-game currency that you have to haggle with or something like that. Like I could sort of see that working out too, without to kind of have your cake and eat it too, not get rid of the haggle mechanic and still kind of facilitate those experiences like Mark's saying, where like oh, like you're a total sucker, like you paid 100 coins for that, like I didn't, I paid 20 coins for it, or whatever. So,
yeah, I mean it none of it matters, I guess, unless the money is real, right? Like
right, yeah, that's what I mean.
True.
It feels like
that's
like yeah,
Yeah, like if you're just playing with, Mario coins, like who cares? Like I got platinum points for days. I don't care.
Make it the gold coins that do like translate to money on the Switch or
There you
whatever.
go.
Oh yeah, there you go.
That's I feel like there's something. Like I feel like there's a way to do it. Like there's something in there.
I
But
mean, don't get me wrong. I would love for Nintendo to figure out a way to bring Rusty's Real Deal Baseball to like Switch or another platform, so more people can experience the joy of Rusty's Real Deal Baseball. Like, I'm all for that.
Yeah.
I would also like, how cool would it be to, I love all the mini games. I love the high score chasing, but I sort of lament the fact that there's no leaderboards or anything like that. You can't see, you can't be racing against your friends for like the best score on, whatever game the two of you are obsessed with at the moment. Like just little modern tweaks that could make the game a little bit more engaging.
Oh, could you imagine? That'd be so good.
So cool.
Yeah, because my leaderboards are huge for like my friends and I and like the communities and stuff. Like, man, like Neon White, we got so sucked into just like the shaving off microseconds. And yes, Rusty could totally tap into that. I want it so bad now.
Well, and especially as like a tech demo style game, right? That like Rusty's is. You think about how Mark, like our friends got really into the racing for like leaderboards in Astrobot. Rescue? No, shoot.
Playroom.
The name of the
Astro's Playroom.
Yeah, that's right. Astro's Playroom. Because like it could really be like down to a tenth of a second to see like who gets to the end of the thing faster, and then like trash talking to each other by posting videos of their best times, and like if it's just a little bit more connected to the way people use social media now, it could be so much more fun.
I wish. I hope we get Rusty's Last Dance, and I hope that's what it's called.
It's just never gonna happen.
Well, keep the hope alive, man. Come on.
Is Last Dance, that was the terminology that Phil Jackson used for the Bulls return season, right?
Yes,
okay, yeah,
yes, it was. You're talking to a Chicago boy, man. I definitely, and I grew up in that era too. That's a 90s Bulls is a precious era to me. If they did Rusty's Real Deal Basketball and called it Rusty's Last Dance,
yes,
that would be incredible.
That would
Chicago
be amazing.
Bulldogs.
Yes. Oh my God.
So Seth, I grew up in southeastern Wisconsin. I lived in Chicago for a couple of years.
Nice. Okay.
And so when you were describing the like sort of summer night feel of a lot of the mini games, one of them, I believe it's Bat and Switch, takes place in a what appears to be like a very flat park with some trees, and there's a big body of water in the background. And my mind was like, that's the park by Lake Michigan, like
1000%.
Like, and it just like, so you saying that like that evokes those feelings for you, like I was like, yes, that I can picture like it's like off Diversey or like Montrose Harbor.
It's a baseball. Like, it's a baseball town, dude. Like that's what it is. And even like, like that little pocket of the country, like just like I've been to, the Brewers like stadium many, many times. And just like that's a baseball area. And it totally feels like that. Yeah. There's something intensely nostalgic to me about that.
We talk a little bit about like baseball areas in general, because Rusty never came to Europe, right? It was in North America and Japan only,
and Korea, weirdly.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Well, and so is that tied into like baseball as being like national pastimes for the markets that it's in? Because like it obviously is like such an American pastime, but baseball is huge in Japan as well. Like I just wonder if like there needs to be an element of nostalgia to make the game work.
That's an interesting point. I don't know. Like to me that feels like a component of it, but I don't know if it's like the main component. Like I think that's like part of what makes it part of the secret sauce or whatever.
Yeah, part of the soup.
Yeah, exactly. But I don't think I like I think it could be about like any number of sports. Like I think it could be a hockey game or whatever.
But are you playing Rusty's Real Deal Cricket? Like,
right. Yeah, that's a good point. I don't know. Yeah, that's an interesting thought exercise.
Yeah. Yeah, I hadn't really thought about it that way. Do you think, and I don't know that this is true, but do you think that maybe like you're saying, Patrick, like baseball isn't um as like big a pastime, in Europe as it is in the US and in Japan. And so do you think that that limits kind of like the pickup and playability of some of the mini games because you're just not immediately if you're not like again, like if I was playing like
True.
Rusty's Real Deal Cricket and I don't know the rules of cricket or I don't know like the mechanics of cricket, so like mini games based around cricket, like I could learn them, or I mean I don't know, I just don't
Yeah.
know
Yeah.
if that, yeah, maybe you're right, maybe that is part of it.
Good
Yeah,
point.
totally. Like if you're there's the game in here where you're calling balls and strikes, and like
Right.
you just know what that means. But if it's like, yeah, now you got to count, wickets and misses. I have no idea. I don't know cricket terms.
Yeah. Like if you
But yeah,
if it's a hockey game and it's like, yeah, it's using terms like yeah, you have to ice the puck or something like that.
yeah,
And like
yeah,
nobody
yeah.
knows what
Right.
that means, right? So
Exactly.
yeah, that's an interesting point. I never this is just one of the many reasons I love this game is that you can think about it in these like weirdly deep ways, even though it's just this dumb little game about a sad dog. What a game! What a game! Guys, how did this become such a crucial part of the NCS DNA? How how did this game just kind of become one of the pillars? I would say the beating heart of NCS is Rusty Slugger. I would say.
Mark, you got any
I
theories?
I I think it's personally because, kind of like all three of our experiences where we picked up Rusty's Real Deal Baseball, we played it a little bit and then we put it down, and yet it was always like lingering,
Mhm.
whether consciously or not, there's just something that I think really tickles both Patrick and I about how unusual it is. And I think truthfully, like the fact that it is kind of like a one-off, that it's so, like in so many ways, it's very of Nintendo, but also very different from Nintendo. Like it's experimenting with like microtransactions, but it has so many elements of their heritage with Game and Watch, and yet the story is so unique for a Nintendo game, but the characters so likable that is so like Nintendo. Like I feel like it's the mix of both like the
Yeah.
unusual and that Nintendo polish, that Nintendo attention to detail that just makes the game so irresistible to me.
I think there's also a
Weird Nintendo is our favorite Nintendo, I guess is
yes,
what I would say.
absolutely.
Agreed.
I think there's also something to we are frequently using or like trying to insert Nintendo characters into other contexts. That's something that we like to do. We like to think about like what would the inner lives of these characters be. And for most Nintendo characters, we need to meet Nintendo more than halfway and be like, okay,
Yes.
we think Diddy Kong is also into this kind of stuff. But like Rusty, you know who Rusty is. Like you don't need to make up elements of his personality. He is fully expressed and realized in Rusty's Real Deal Baseball.
True. Is Rusty Slugger low key the most characterized character in Nintendo history? Like
Ooh, I mean, you got Tingles. Tingle is on the board.
Tingle's on the board, but like, and yeah, we've had various Tingle games and stuff that like didn't even come out over here, and we know a little bit about Tingle, but like to literally babysit like his kids and
Yeah,
like
it's
his
true.
help him in his life, and like you
Mhm.
play an instrumental role in this character's life. Like I wonder he may be the most fleshed
He's
out
up there.
Nintendo
Yeah.
character.
I
Yeah.
mean,
Yeah.
I would also put forth Prince Mallow from Super Mario RPG.
Ah,
Pretty well
good
developed
call.
character.
Yeah.
Um, Mark, you got
Well, I
any?
think, well, no, I mean, Seth, I think you're like, as far as like Nintendo heavy hitters go, they all are kind of, like, there's a certain amount of just like blank avatarness to them because
Totally.
you are usually controlling those characters. Um, and they have to be so malleable to like fit into so many different situations. But you in this instance, you're interacting with Rusty as like your own me, and so he can have his own motivations, his own inner life. You know what I mean? Because you're just
Right.
reacting to him. Yeah, man, Rusty's real deep.
And
You really go through
Yeah.
a journey with Rusty. Yeah.
Yeah, in this one you're the blank slate. Like in this game
Yeah.
you're
Oh.
the avatar, yeah, right? The way Mario, something you guys don't know about me is that I as a child of the internet and stuff grew up writing Mario fan fiction on the internet. That's something that I did for many years, and some of my best friends on the planet I met that way. And that it really spoke to me, Patrick, when you said that you normally have to meet Nintendo more than halfway, because that's totally true. And that's what has always appealed to me about Mario lore, is that we're just overthinking about, this thing that Nintendo actually doesn't care about, and that's what I really love to do. But this is like one of the only Nintendo games where that's actually impossible, because Nintendo has just laid it bare in front of you. This is who this dude is. This is his life. This is his family, and you're there for the ride. So
and
special.
it's also just thinking about it, that it's also Nintendo is frequently funny, right? Like Nintendo games are frequently funny, but like this is almost the first like narrative comedy game that I can think of from Nintendo. Like the point of its story is to make you laugh and engage with how weird it is. As we were talking about like other characters who are sort of like ciphers, I was thinking about like Samus, and then I was like, oh yeah, but they screw that up in Other M. And like it's because it's not like Rusty's Real Deal Baseball is his Other M, but it's funny.
Right.
Oh my gosh. If there is no other takeaway from this episode, let it be that. Let it be the comparisons that have been made to The Last of Us, to Silent Hill, and to Metroid Other M.
That's right.
Yeah, guys, this has been a total blast. If you would point people in your direction, where can they find you? If you're on any social media, how can they follow NCS? Point them your way. Whoever.
You can find you can find Nintendo Cartridge Society anywhere that you get your podcasts. Like Patrick was saying at the top of the show, we do 2 episodes a week. One is a news episode. The other one is more of a deep dive into a very specific Nintendo topic. And the show is on Twitter at NinCart Society. We're not super active on Twitter, but you can check us out there.
Awesome.
Sign all of that.
Co-signed. Awesome. And yeah, everybody, pick it up when you have the chance. Like while you have the chance to pick up Rusty's Real Deal Baseball, this may be Rusty's last dance. Pick it up now. Run, don't walk. If you have a 3DS, you need to get in there, get all of the games, play enough to get all of the games. Like get in while you can.
Yeah, it's worth it.
It's worth it, and the time is running out. So if we could just end the episode on a note of doom and gloom.
Call to action.
Call to action.
Doom and gloom.
That's right.
Yeah, you can affect change here. You can get access to these games. All you gotta do is do it now.
Yeah, that's right. Be the change you want to see in the world, man.
Maybe
that's
here
right.
at the end of the Nintendo 3DS's like eShop's life, if there's a surge of downloads of Rusty's Real Deal Baseball, that'll encourage Nintendo to to bring it to Switch.
We can save it like we can save the rec center, right? That's being
that's right.
Yeah, okay, great.
Totally. Guys, thank you so much. It's been a total blast, and thank you all for helping me keep Nintendo weird. Bye-bye. Keep Nintendo Weird is brought to you by the amazing people at patreon.com/allinpodcast. And I want to thank every single person who supports us over there, especially our Triforce tier supporters, Josh Vaughn, John Cummins, Sparky, Adam Caparello, Shy Guy, Danielina Hosa, Dan and Luma, and Uncle Randy Bryans, of course. But we can't forget about our Golden Banana tier patrons, Rob Yapel, Third Strongest Mole, Shano Baggins Ashton, Tim A, aka Neoprime33, aka Nintendo Dad number 4, Matt Shy Guy City Murray, Drew Agnew, Phelan Ward, Bill Tucker, Marcus O'Neill, Liam D, Solo Something, and Bowza. Thank you guys so much for your support, and if you want to join their ranks and get this show early, head on over to patreon.com/allinpodcast and see what tier works for you. Thank you all so much for helping me keep Nintendo weird.